The Unexplained Disappearance of Brian Schaefer, a modern American mystery. Brian Schaefer, a 27-year-old medical student at Ohio State University, was known for his bright future and outgoing nature. On the night of March 31st, 2006, Brian went out with friends to celebrate the start of spring break. By the early hours of April 1st, he mysteriously disappeared without leaving any trace, sparking one of the most baffling missing person cases in recent American history. Born on February 25, 1979, in Pickerington, Ohio, a suburb of Columbus, Brian was the oldest of two sons in the Schaefer family. He had a younger brother named Derek. Brian shared a close bond with his family, especially his mother, Renee Schaefer, who had been fighting cancer for several years. Despite her illness, Renee remained a pillar of strength for Brian. Her health struggles partly inspired his decision to pursue a career in medicine. Tragically, Renee passed away in March 2006, delivering a heavy emotional blow to Brian. Despite his grief, Brian appeared resolute, focusing on his studies and anticipating a planned vacation with his girlfriend, Alexis Wagner, who was also a medical student at OSU. Brian was widely admired for his easygoing attitude, sharp intellect, and love of music. A devoted Jimmy Buffett fan, his friends often teased that Brian would rather be strumming a guitar at a beach bar than practicing medicine. His dream was to form a band and live a relaxed, carefree life by the ocean. Those who knew him described him as charming, witty, and always ready for a good time. This made his sudden and unexplained disappearance all the more shocking. On March 31st, 2006, Brian met his friend William Clint Florence to kick off spring break with a night of bar hopping in Columbus's Arena District, a lively area packed with bars and clubs. Their evening began with dinner and drinks at the Ugly Tuna Saloon, a popular student hangout located in the South Campus Gateway near OSU, known for its energetic crowd and affordable drinks. Throughout the night, Brian and Clint visited multiple bars, taking shots and enjoying themselves. Brian became noticeably intoxicated but remained in good spirits, joking and laughing with Clint. Around midnight, Clint's friend Meredith rejoined them, offering to give the two a ride back to the Ugly Tuna Saloon for one final round before closing time. Surveillance footage showed Brian, Clint, and Meredith riding an escalator up to the bar's second floor at 1:15 a.m. On April 1st, they were seen mingling and chatting with other patrons, with Brian seemingly having a good time despite his intoxication. At approximately 1:55 a.m., Brian was caught on camera outside the bar having a brief conversation with two women who were also patrons. He was smiling and appeared relaxed. After this, he re-entered the bar. This was the last known sighting of Brian. The bar closed shortly after 2 a.m., and when Clint and Meredith left, they searched for Brian but couldn't find him. Assuming he had gone home alone, something not unusual during nights out, they left without him. Brian never returned to his apartment. 2 days later, when he missed a flight to Miami with Alexis, alarm bells rang. Alexis, who had been trying to reach him all weekend, grew distraught and, along with Brian's father Randy and brother Derek, reported him missing. The Columbus Police Department launched a large-scale investigation into his disappearance. Initial inquiries considered that Brian might have left the bar on his own and suffered an accident or injury nearby. However, extensive searches of the surrounding area, including construction sites, dumpsters, and the Olentangy River, yielded no evidence. The theory that Brian had wandered off and succumbed to the elements was quickly dismissed due to the thorough searches conducted by law enforcement and volunteers. Attention then turned to reviewing surveillance footage from the Ugly Tuna Saloon and nearby businesses. The footage revealed a perplexing detail. Every person who entered and exited the bar that night was accounted for, except Brian. The cameras clearly showed him re-entering the bar at 1:55 a.m., but there was no footage of him leaving. This led to wild speculation that Brian might have slipped out through an unmonitored exit. Yet, all exits were heavily monitored or led to thoroughly searched areas. Police interviewed everyone present that night, including Clint and Meredith. Clint, one of Brian's closest friends, cooperated but refused a polygraph test, sparking rumors and suspicion. Despite no concrete evidence linking him to Brian's disappearance, some believed he was withholding information. Meredith, on the other hand, took and passed a polygraph, seemingly clearing her of suspicion. As the investigation unfolded, various theories emerged. Some thought Brian might have been the victim of foul play, possibly targeted by someone at the bar or nearby. His intoxicated state made him vulnerable, but there was no sign of a struggle, nor did anyone witness anything unusual. Others speculated that Brian might have staged his disappearance due to grief over his mother's death and the pressures of medical school. However, his bank accounts, credit cards, and phone remained untouched, with no evidence suggesting he planned to vanish. One chilling theory gaining traction over the years connected Brian's case to the so-called smiley face killer, an alleged group blamed for the deaths of young men across the Midwest, often found near bodies of water with smiley face graffiti nearby. Though controversial and largely dismissed by law enforcement, the theory sparked public fascination and speculation that Brian might have been a victim. Despite the intrigue, no definitive proof linked Brian's disappearance to this theory. As days turned into weeks and months, hope of finding Brian alive diminished. His family, especially his father Randy and brother Derek, were devastated. Randy became a relentless advocate for finding Brian, working closely with police and hiring private investigators to pursue leads beyond the scope of the official investigation. Tragically, Randy died in September 2008 when a tree limb fell on him during a windstorm, a heartbreaking loss that ended the family's most vocal push for answers. Alexis Wagner, Brian's girlfriend, was heartbroken. They had planned a future together, and for months she called his phone every night, hoping he would answer. Once, months after his disappearance, her call rang several times before going to voicemail, sparking brief hope. However, the phone company later explained this was likely a system glitch, not proof Brian was alive. Despite this, Alexis continued to support the Schaefer family and held on to hope that Brian would someday be found. Brian Schaefer's story remains etched in the public consciousness and is frequently discussed on true crime podcasts, forums, and TV shows. The mystery of his disappearance, combined with eerie surveillance footage showing him seemingly vanishing without a trace, has kept the case in the spotlight for nearly 20 years. Though time has passed, the case remains open. The Columbus Police Department continues to receive tips and leads, but none have produced breakthroughs. Over time, several theories about Brian's fate have surfaced. Some believe that overwhelmed by grief and stress, he may have chosen to start a new life, possibly with help from someone close to him. However, this seems unlikely since he left behind all his possessions and loved ones, and no credible evidence suggests he is alive. Others theorize Brian was murdered either inside the bar or after slipping out an unmonitored exit. The absence of a body or belongings makes this hard to prove. Some suggest an accidental death covered up by someone who panicked, disposing of his body in a way that it would never be found. This, too, is difficult to verify, considering the thorough searches and lack of physical evidence. Another possibility is that Brian accidentally fell or was injured in a place like a construction site or the Olentangy River. However, despite exhaustive searches, no trace of him was found. This theory also struggles to explain how he could have vanished without being captured leaving the bar on camera. Brian Schaefer's disappearance remains one of Ohio's most enduring mysteries.